This is Believing Buckeyes. I'm Brian Brown with All-American quarterback Chimdi. Our Buckeyes played Western Michigan this past weekend, and to be honest, they didn't meet much resistance. They ended up going out there winning that game 56-0 in dominant fashion at home. Chim, what do you think about the Buckeyes' performance overall, man? It was it was a night game, but we
It's a good
kind of
game.
took it to them.
I don't want to overreact to these games.
Hmm.
I really don't want to overreact to what I call preseason games, right? These are gear-up games. These are teams that Ohio State is supposed to dominate against, and they did what they were supposed to do, and they dominated. But I'm going to overreact a little bit, and I'm going to Buckeye Nation, buckle up, man. I tweeted about it. This is going to be a fun year. These guys are ready to play. Like, talent is one thing, and we all knew they had the talent coming in. But one thing we know is that it's not enough just to have the talent. You have to execute. You have to improve from week 1 to week 2, from week 2 to week 3. And really what I was looking for was that improvement. Look, we got a few Ryan Day years under, we've seen a few Ryan Day years, right?
Right.
And we've seen the level that a Ryan Day Ohio State Buckeye team can get to. But we also have seen some of the negatives, right? And one of the big things, if I was to criticize anything, one of the big things that I would notice is that when there was an issue, it just felt like it took too long to get fixed. And I attribute a lot of that to, Ryan Day really juggling too much. I feel like he had to do a lot, calling the offense, orchestrating that offense, being the head coach, dealing with NIL, dealing with recruiting, closing. Like, it's just a lot in today's college football. But from week 1 to week 2 this season, and they played good week 1, but to me, they took a big jump for week 1 to week 2. And some of that's by design, based on holding a little bit back week 1, getting that stuff right, and then opening up the playbook a little bit more week 2. But I just like the progression. And that progression, to me, is what's important if you're going to build a championship team and have a team ready to play come a playoff this year.
Yeah, that's right. And I think overall, the most impressive thing to me was just really how physical and dominant we were up front, right? I mean, last week after the game against Akron, it was still some questions like, oh, what's up with this offensive line? I was like, I think it looked okay to me. Like, it started off a little rough, but, we kind of pinpointed some things that would have really changed the whole perspective for that first half against Akron. Obviously, the second half was, the dominant outing we expected. But out the gate this week against Western Michigan, we kind of took things right to them. When you just start looking at the running the ball, how Quinshon Judkins was making big runs and things of that nature. He was making big runs because he was clean, right? He was clean till you got to the second, third level on a lot of those cases. Same thing with Travion Henderson starting off the game with a touchdown. And even Will Howard getting his first rushing touchdown as a Buckeye. I mean, we really just dominated up front when it came out the gate. And you obviously, when they play a team like this, we always talk about having a fast start. And we definitely had that this week. Fast start. We took it right to them. Western Michigan, like I said, they played well week 1, right? I said, they was leading against Wisconsin in the fourth quarter. So, they came out the season and obviously they ended up coming up short in that game. And this week, they really, like I said, there's not much resistance. They couldn't get much of anything going, but it always starts up front, and that's just because in the trenches on both sides of the ball, we was pretty dominant. That's for sure.
Yeah, and for me, we look at these games, and there's always the thought that I want to see them against better competition, and that's valid. But for me, when I watch these early games, I'm not looking at the score. I'm not looking at how much they're winning the games by, which is what we tend to do as fans. I'm looking at how they're winning the game. How are they winning the game? Is Quinshon Judkins getting the ball, making 5 guys miss on his way to a 50-yard, 40-yard touchdown? Or are all the offensive linemen getting a hat on the hat, receivers blocking downfield, tight ends getting their guy, and like you mentioned, him being clean 5, 6, 7 yards down the field, and then, showing what he can do in open field. Like, that to me is a difference, right? Are guys getting turned loose and them still being able to overcome because they're more talented? No. Everybody executing the way they're supposed to execute, and this thing being being operating like a well-oiled machine. To me, that's what was most impressive. And the play calling, like,
Yeah.
and this isn't like this is not like super impressive play calling. It's just these are the plays. Like the plays and the way they come back to back with the different options. This is the system, right? And I think what was missing a lot last year, and we're gonna talk about this guy a little bit more, but what was missing a lot last year is a consistent system, a consistent identity. And you could see, like, we wanted to be a running team. We wanted to, run power and these things. And then and then things weren't really working out with the runs and the play action. Then we go to a spread and we try to do that. Like, we just never knew exactly what that offense was. And it was kind of clunky all the way throughout the season, and it never truly got fixed. This feels a lot different than what we saw last year.
Yeah, the addition of Chip Kelly and him basically having a plan, right? A plan for the offense. Week 1, I want to run this stuff. Week 2, I'm going to add this stuff to it. I'm sure when they get back on the field, obviously they'll have a bye week this week. Next week they play Marshall. They add a little bit more to it as well. And I think Will Howard is really the guy that kind of is making this look so well, right? He's out there. He's making great decisions. He's playing efficient. And he's also just being a leader, right? Just kind of going out there and with confidence, right? Doesn't look flustered about any situation. Looks like he's making the proper reads and things of that nature and kind of letting things flow that way. And obviously, it's been showing, right? Two weeks in, 2 weeks good, right? When it comes to his performance and what he's been doing with our offense. But overall, I think, this is a pretty good performance. But I got to shout out this defense, man. Shout out to the defense. Obviously, they get the goose egg on the scoreboard, right? Hold Western Michigan to 0 points. But I think what's the most impressive thing is Western Michigan only had 99 total yards as an offense Saturday afternoon. How impressive is that? That you just got to go out there and first team obviously do their thing, but obviously the backups had to do their thing as well to kind of keep things going in that matter. How impressive has that defense been so far this season?
Yeah, long day at the office for Western Michigan, which who had, like you mentioned, had a really good game a week before that against a solid Big Ten team. And having to come out there and not really be able to get anything going. The defense to me is impressive, and I think Jim Knowles has found his stride as a defensive coordinator. And it's funny to say that because defense was really good last year. And the year before that, they were good for most of the year outside of, the 2 big games at the end of the year. But to me, last year was an overcorrection of the year before, where those explosive plays against that team up north really hurt them. And then the same thing happened in the playoffs.
Yeah.
This year is more of the lessons from the last 2 years, and I think he's really getting a good understanding of how to play his guys, right? Really build a defense, not around just what, his past history is as a defensive scheme, but really build that scheme around those guys, knowing that I could pull different levers when I need it. Mm-hmm. But let me make sure I could get Jack Sawyer and JTT in the one-on-ones on the edges because they can't block those guys. Right? And let me make sure I'm blitzing some of these linebackers, which he always has done. But I think he's really kind of getting the feel, and I talked about it a little bit, during the game when we went live. But is that conflict between talent and scheme to me, where when you're at Ohio State, you may have a great scheme and all that stuff, but at Ohio State, you got a bunch of guys who can win one-on-ones. Mm-hmm. So really, in certain situations, you don't want to over-scheme it. You just want to get Jack Sawyer in a one-on-one on the edge, which is what Coach Johnson wants, right? Get him in a one-on-one on the edge and let him win because he's good at that. He can do it. And boy, was he able to do it, man. Yeah, the defense is impressive. It's going to be interesting how they continue to progress. I want to give a shout-out to, first of all, the young guys came in and played great.
Right.
So they got a lot of depth. I want to give a shout out to Aubrey Reese, man. Ever since the first time I saw him at a practice, I'm like, man, this kid is impressive. And I know going in when I first watched that practice, I was really looking to go to see, Sonny Styles and his transition linebacker, CJ Higgs getting his opportunity. But Aubrey Reese, every time he steps foot on the field, man, he impresses. And I'm not just saying it because he's one of your tar blooded.
Because he's tar blooded. That's why you're saying it, right? I mean, that's the.
But the kid is special, man, and it goes for a lot of the young guys, a lot of the young players on offense and defense. So it's good to see that group go out there and play. Aaron Scott, who's wearing the number 5, right? You know, I always say when you wear the number 5 as a Buckeye, when you wear the number 5 as a Buckeye, your floor is special. Your floor. And Aaron Scott got a big pass up at the end of the game. That should have been a pick 6. I'm gonna hold him to that. Like if he gets that type of break again, I want him to catch it and take it for 6. But yeah, those I was also impressed with the depth that they showed on the defensive side of the ball, bringing in new guys and still holding the goose egg and not missing the beat.
Yeah, and now real quick, one of your guys, one of our guys, right, Denzel Burke. Obviously, he catches a targeting call early in the game, and obviously, the rules. They, one and done, right? When it comes to that, but I mean, his was kind of a little
it's terrible.
I mean, right? It was borderline, right? Or if it was borderline, right? What's your thoughts on Denzel Burke having to sit out essentially, really, basically the whole game due to something that was kind of, like I say, it could go either way.
Yeah, if I was lived alone and didn't have a wife that would hold me super accountable, I probably would have punched a hole in the wall. It was a ridiculous call, and honestly, I mean, I want to speak directly to the NCAA refs and whoever's in charge of making the decisions on how they're going to ref a game and what the calls and the rules are going to be. Like, I really want to ask, do they take this thing serious? Like, do they take do they take their job serious? Because the players who play the game at a college level, prior to NIL, post NIL, I don't care. They take it serious. And they're kicking guys out of a game after making bad calls. And they're also suspended for another half. If you get kicked out in the second half or whatever, you miss the first half of the next game. Like that's too heavy of a punishment for a call that has so much gray area, right? Yeah. They're shooting from the hip when they make some of these calls. Like, the player, he made forcible contact. Like y'all don't even know during the game. The ref expert that they asked that guy commentates on whether or not the call should be the call or whatever said, yeah, there's no way this is going to be targeted. Then they come out and now not only is it targeting, he has to go. He's out of the game. Like there's too much gray area, and the stakes for these players are too high. I mean, you're talking about guys who are trying to win awards, guys who are trying to go to the next level. It's too high for this type of uncertainty when it comes to this type of call, man. So there has to be a change. Like, I don't know who's in charge of this decision making, but if I ever come go past them in the grocery store, we're gonna have a nice
few words
because it doesn't make sense. It honestly doesn't make sense.
No, and the thing about it is, obviously, it's Western Michigan, right? We went 56-0. Okay, not a huge deal, right? But what if it's the Oregon game? And it's the same play. Everybody's out there playing hard. And sometimes it's targeting, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, he clearly went for this guy's head, or he clearly is lunging, trying to, make a play. And that's not how you play the game any longer. And it's clear as day. And you throw that flag and you review it, and that guy's out the game. He needs to learn not to do that. Now, that's not how you play the game any longer. But this one is just simply not that, right? It's just not that. And you call yourself reviewing it. Obviously, the review process was bad, right? The people, one person in the booth who's official, right? Not just some guy with an opinion, someone that's, been doing it, who has done it at the highest level for a long time, makes a decision, right? Yeah, no way. Yeah. And then it goes the other way. And it's just, like you say, it's unacceptable. It's tough to always see for the kid, especially, just kind of looking in like, man, he got ready all week and this is how the game goes. This little thing here out of his hand, not trying to make a dirty play, and this is how it goes. And I don't know, man. It's a bad one. Like you say, they need to do something about looking to it, because it's just improper.
Yeah, you gotta make that decision, man. I need him to put a helmet and some shoulder pads on and go make it. You're going to make 10 tackles, and then after you do it, we watch the film, we give our critiques, and then you come up with the decision. Because I'm starting to feel like the people who make these rules never played the game or never were really close to the game. It just doesn't. It doesn't make sense, man. I felt bad for him. Good thing it is in the Western Michigan game where he probably only plays a half anyway, right?
Right.
But in a big game, like that's an unacceptable call, man. And they got to start putting these refs that make these decisions in press conference after the game. Let us ask questions. Let us get a better understanding of what you were thinking in that moment, and let us scrutinize you for failing what you do for a living. Or I don't even know how much. I don't even know if that's a full time or part time, but whatever.
No, it's a full time. They get paid enough. They don't have to do anything else throughout the year but ref those games. But yeah, let's move on, man. Obviously, this weekend Ohio State has a bye. We have Marshall in 2 weeks. We gotta so we get this weekend off. So next week we'll dive a little bit more into Marshall and what to expect out of them. But let's go around Big Ten, right? I mean, if you guys missed it, me and Chimdi, we've been going live, man. We've been kind of jumping on live on Saturday, discussing different topics right before the game or during the game. And this past weekend we hopped on twice, man. I was actually out of the country going live so we could talk about what's going on in the college football world. And obviously the biggest thing was Texas playing at the Big House, right? Playing that team up north, playing them at home. And Michigan, they wasn't up for the task, right?
Yeah, they stunk it up, man.
They stunk it up, yeah.
Michigan stunk it up. And, I think a lot of Michigan fans are still riding high off their national championship, so they don't really care that much. A lot of them don't. I mean, there's a good amount of them that do, but a lot of them don't. But, man, they did not seem like they were ready. And I think we expected that they will struggle in this game, still figuring out the quarterback position. A lot of coaches have went on to the NFL or have been let go or whatever. A lot of change on the offensive line as well. Some change on defense. Lost a lot of guys to the NFL. So there was reasons to expect them to still be figuring it out. Meanwhile, Texas kind of has a solid group coming in and is a really talented football team who has the potential to compete for national championship.
Yep.
But, man, Michigan wasn't good at the stuff that you would just expect them to be good at, right? Mm-hmm. And that starts with defense. I mean, at the end of the day, quarterback, whatever, offensive line still figuring it out, whatever. But the defense, the leaky defense that I saw was uncharacteristic of the team that we saw the last few years. They obviously have lost some guys on defense, but I didn't think they lost that much that it would affect them to that. They still got a really good D-line. They still got who many consider the best cornerback in college football. He's had 2 challenging weeks. I don't put all that on him. The defense, there's something missing there. There's something missing on that defense that we have grown accustomed to. And if it continues, it is going to be a long year because they got to hang their head on defense while they let their offense figure it out. And if they can't, I mean, we're talking close to 500 type season.
Yeah. I mean, before this even started, looking at their schedule, I had Michigan down for 4 losses. I had them losing to Texas, had them losing to USC. They played them in a couple weeks, losing to Oregon, losing to Ohio State. And those are just like, obviously top-tier teams. I don't think, that's not very surprising. But many people thinking Michigan will be able to kind of figure out this season and still compete for a playoff spot. I just didn't see it that way, right? With everything they lost, to me, it just felt like too much. And obviously, I guess the nation kind of got to see it this past weekend that, Michigan is a different team, a different program. And hopefully they do not figure it out. They probably won't. And, things will kind of keep continuing in that fashion. And we will continue to improve. And then when we see them that Saturday in November, we just let it all hang out on the field and we run it up. I'm not gonna say like Western Michigan because I got a little bit of respect for those guys, but we just run it up like like the way we're supposed to, and we go out there in a dominant fashion and take it to them. Yeah. Right. And so around the Big Ten, obviously we some other things kind of took off. Iowa, which is our first Big Ten opponent here in 3 weekends. They played. Did I count that right? Yeah, about 2 or 3 weekends. How you want to say it? They took on Iowa State. And they always play Iowa State. This game is always close.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it's like a game that Iowa tends to kind of not be able to figure out. And they end up losing this one against Iowa State. I don't know, man. What's any thoughts on real quick on the Iowa program and why they always
I
struggle with
don't know.
Iowa State.
I don't know. It's a former bowl or something, man. They play their rival early in the year because a lot of the people in Iowa are going to be out harvesting later on in the year. But
That makes sense.
it's I don't know. Iowa's a team that does this to me. Like they struggle outside of the conference, and they come into the conference and they play really well in the conference, at least defensively.
Yeah,
They
right.
keep games close, and they compete, and they can be somewhat disruptive. And I hate it because go do that outside the conference first, so that you can be solidified as a ranked team before you start disrupting everybody within. But yeah, I wasn't anticipating them losing. I didn't get to catch most of the game. It seemed like they have an improved offense this year. With that improved offense, if they could keep the same level of defense, it seemed like they would have a really, really good year. But rivalry games are rivalry games, man, and sometimes it's just how things
go.
Out.
Yeah, Oregon this past weekend they're ended up with another close game, right? They played Boise State. They end up winning that game 37-34. But this is basically 2 weeks in a row to start the season that Oregon has not been playing up to the level we would thought Oregon were, basically kind of looking at the preseason. I know you watched a good amount of that game. What's your quick thoughts on the Oregon Duck and the team that they have out there on the field?
Yeah, this just don't seem like a very physical team here early in the year, and that could just be early in the year woes or whatever. But they just don't seem as tough as I thought a Dan Lanning team had grown to be, and that wouldn't be too alarming if they still were just a Pac-12 team. But they're in the Big Ten, and there's going to be some tough games. Obviously, they got a lot of talent. They still got a ton of talent, right? So they still are.
And they still won. They didn't lose, right? They still won. So everything is.
Yeah, something about the state of Idaho.
Game.
There's something about the state of Idaho for Oregon because they play Idaho week 1 and barely beat them. Come back and play Boise the next week and win by 3 points. They got to get out of that state. They ain't so much to do out there. Right? They got to get out of that state. They got to stop eating those Idaho potatoes, man. They got to free themselves from that competition. But we'll see. I think they continue to improve throughout the year, and they're going to be a tough opponent come October 12th.
Right, they will improve, right? And the big thing, like I said, they haven't lost, and obviously don't, when it comes down to it, obviously you want to win sexy, right, and play well and all those things, but when it comes down to it, just keep winning games and everything will kind of work itself out when it comes to college football. USC, obviously they had a big win week 1 against, who did they play week 1?
They play LSU.
LSU, big win week 1. They play, I believe, Utah State. They've been playing well, looking great, fantastic out of them. Penn State struggles. They go down to the wire against Bowling Green. And also, that's 2 weeks in a row that they have kind of started off a little shaky against a lesser opponent. But those are the top dogs of the Big Ten, right? And their thought, right? This early on in the season. Any surprises?
Yeah, USC to me is the biggest surprise. USC playing defense is a different team. Obviously, they got a new defensive coordinator up there. I wasn't anticipating, so I had belief in the coordinator. I just feel like it was going to, and maybe it's not over, it's early, but I just feel like it was going to take them at least a season to really start figuring out the defense. USC always has talented players that they recruit and get there, but their defense was I think they were bottom 5 last year, which it really didn't make sense. Right? So I guess they were just an undisciplined defense, but they are looking right now through 2 weeks, which doesn't mean a lot, but they're looking like a top 2 team in the Big Ten. Which kind of replacing Michigan as I think the team that really compete in the Big Ten. So yeah, they're looking solid. They have a really good quarterback, and their coach is a really good offensive play caller, and now they have some defense. So they're going to be a team to that's going to be up there competing for the Big Ten.
For a spot at top. Yeah, I mean, when I watched them just briefly, this is a physical team, right? I mean, up front, offensive line and defensive line, they're physical. And I think before the season, their coach was talking about how basically the team transformed and they gained all this muscle, all this weight and muscle during the off season, and it's like different mindset as a defense and different style of play. And so far, obviously it's early, but they do look like a team that's going to be built for to be around for a while. But real quick, wanted to talk about Kyle McCord, man. Right, Kyle McCord's been lighting up in Syracuse over the first 2 weeks of the season. This past week, they played Georgia Tech, who's riding a high horse. Right, they beat Florida State in week 1, and it's clips of Kyle McCord, hollering on the sideline that these guys can't play with us. The coaches talk about sending Ryan Day bottles of champagne for letting him have Kyle McCord. Syracuse, I would say the Orangemen in football, man, looking pretty solid so far, right?
Yeah, McCord's looking good. He's playing like a weight has been lifted off his shoulders. I think part of it is being able to get a full year starting, then being able to go back and watch himself play and learn and improve and figure out what he needs to work on. And I think the other part of it, the level of expectation isn't as high. He doesn't have he's not as much under the microscope. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder. Maybe Devin Brown starts this next game if I make a mistake.
Play bad, all right. Yeah.
And they're just out there letting him throw. He's dropping back. He's throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game, and he's getting into a rhythm that realistically he was never going to be able to get to at Ohio State. We were never going to give him the keys to the offense to that level. And that's understandable, right? We needed to help him out last year. We would have needed to improve and establish the running game, and he would have needed to just play better. But I think he's playing better now, and I'm actually rooting for him. I think Syracuse is on a path to making that playoff.
Yeah,
they're gonna have to play a little bit better defense to compete. But offensively, man, those guys they're doing their thing for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I said it on the show, but I meant to. If not, I had that schedule up in my phone, but that was like my dark horse pick to make the playoffs. Syracuse. I mean, if you look at the schedule, right, they play in the ACC. Competition is not really high, right? Your top teams there will always be Clemson. It'll be Miami. They don't play Clemson. They're not on the schedule. They play Miami the last week of the season. And then the only other team on their schedule that's ranked is North Carolina State, who's they might not even be ranked anymore with the new poll that just came out. So I mean, they don't have a schedule that when you look at any of these teams, you're like, well, Syracuse is not going to be able to take care of business when it comes to this team. So they have a shot, and obviously this is football. If you got a quarterback that's capable, you could go far. And right now, Kyle McCord looks like he has grown. He has some confidence in his play. And right now, he's doing a great job at leading his team. That's for sure.
And to all the questions of why a guy who starts at Ohio State, who goes 11-1, and throws for 3,000 yards or whatever, 24 touchdowns with 6 interceptions or whatever, doesn't want to come back and compete for the starting job again. The reason why is because I can go transfer somewhere else to be a starter. I done already played at Ohio State, which is one of the hardest places to play quarterback in terms of scrutiny. Right. I can go somewhere else, light it up, and my dream of going to the NFL still exists. I can still get to that next level. And by the way, I'm gonna get paid probably more money to go elsewhere and do it. So to all the criticism, he doesn't want to compete. He wants to compete. He just wants to compete against the other team. And that's what he's getting a chance to do. So, honestly, shout out to Kyle McCord, man. Continue to keep his dreams alive and going out there playing well. And to me, it's a win-win. I think
definitely a win-win.
Bringing Will Howard is kind of the right fit for Ohio State. So.
Yeah, exactly what we needed for our team, that's for sure. But that's our show for the week. Obviously, we'll catch up with you guys as soon as possible. Stay in tune, lock in, follow us. We're jumping on live. We're giving out our opinions more throughout the week. I don't know what's going on this weekend, but something happens. We might you might catch us on here. But other than that, always tune in, YouTube, all the streaming platforms when it comes to Apple, Spotify, all the things of that nature, and we'll continue to update you on our Buckeyes and BigTen football across the nation. In all our shows with an OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.